He looked at me across that restaurant table with a face so calm. You would think he was ordering dessert, not about to destroy a marriage. I remember the soft clinking of cutlery and the low hum of conversations around us, as if the whole world kept moving while my own breath felt trapped somewhere behind my ribs. We were sitting near the window, the kind of spot I used to request because I liked watching people pass by. That evening, I couldn't look anywhere except at him. My husband sat with his fingers loosely wrapped around a glass of water, his posture straight, his voice steady, unnaturally steady. Everything about him felt rehearsed, practiced, as if he had already lived through this moment in his mind before arriving. I, on the other hand, had walked in blind. I still don't know what I expected when I asked him that question, the question that had been irritating the back of my mind like a splinter under skin. I thought maybe he would deny it. Maybe he would scoff, get offended, call me dramatic, overthinking, insecure. But instead, he exhaled once and gave a small nod, as if he were confessing to forgetting to pay a bill. Yes, he said, just that, one word. Yes, to the thing I didn't even say out loud completely. My fingers tightened around my napkin so hard I could hear the fabric strain. My ears buzzed, like someone had pressed seashells to both sides of my head. The waiter passed by with plates that smelled of butter and garlic, but I couldn't swallow the air, let alone food. He didn't look guilty. He looked relieved, as if telling me was freedom, and losing me was already a cost he had calculated. Before that night, if someone had asked me what kind of marriage I had, I would have said not perfect, but solid. The kind that creaked sometimes but never threatened to collapse. We had been married for 11 years. We shared a home, a bank account, a history of birthdays and funerals and quiet breakfasts before work. We were not dramatic people. We did not throw plates or slam doors. If anything, ours was a quiet marriage, too quiet maybe in hindsight. I used to wake before him most mornings. I liked the stillness of those early minutes, the smell of strong tea boiling in the kitchen, the little patch of sun that landed on the dining table. He would come out half drowsy, rubbing his eyes, asking the same 2 questions every day. Is it hot outside? And are you going to be home early? I would laugh that he asked both even before brushing his teeth. He kissed me on the forehead every morning without fail, even when we were annoyed at each other, even when we weren't speaking much. That small gesture always fooled me into thinking we were okay, because bad men don't kiss their wives good morning, right? That's what I believed. Our lives were interwoven in all the quiet, ordinary ways. Anniversary dinners at the same restaurant each year. Sunday laundry and grocery lists stuck on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a bell pepper. His mother would call me more than she called him. My nieces called him the calm uncle. We hosted Eid dinners where people complimented our understanding marriage, the way people admire a well-kept plant. And I believed them. I believed us. There were no screaming matches, no suspicions, no obvious fractures. If someone told me a husband like mine could be living another life, not emotionally drifting, not flirting, not texting someone in secret, but actually fathering a newborn with another woman, I would have said they were out of their mind. He was gentle. He was predictable. He was home by 8:30 most nights. He sent pictures from the office when he worked late. He remembered my father's death anniversary without reminders. He once drove across the city just to bring me the correct pain medicine when I had a migraine. Those are not the actions of a man living a double life. At least, that's what I thought. Looking back, our days had become quiet in a way that didn't disturb me at the time. We had stopped asking each other long questions, the kind that require thinking and vulnerability. Our conversations became mostly logistics, bills, errands, relatives, work hours, the car service, who would attend which event. We were functioning like 2 trained employees running a household. But that is the thing with quiet marriages. You assume quiet means safe. You assume absence of visible trouble equals absence of danger. You don't think to search for cracks in walls that sound silent. I used to set his dinner aside if he was late. I ironed his shirts on Sundays. I forwarded him job postings when I knew he wanted to apply somewhere better. I defended him when relatives complained that he didn't visit enough. I thought this is what marriage is. Small care, steady loyalty, doing your part even when nobody claps. And through all of that, he was building a second world. Not an affair in the shadows, a world. A new woman, a child. A life with birthday appointments and doctor visits and rent payments and bottle warmers and lullabies. While I filled his lunchbox in our kitchen, another woman was washing bottles for his baby. While I folded his clothes, she was probably tucking their infant into a cradle. The sickest part is, I did not feel like a fool back then because there was not one visible reason to feel suspicious. He didn't stay out all night. He didn't come home smelling of perfume. He didn't change passwords or hide messages. He didn't pick fights or withdraw affection in a dramatic way. He was careful, not cold, calculated, not clumsy. He kept his routines with me intact, so I would not go searching for what was outside of them. And I trusted consistency more than I trusted my own intuition. That is the life I was living before that dinner. A life I thought was stitched firmly. A marriage I thought had roots. A home I believed was the central truth of his life. I did not know I was only half of it. The first crack was so small that I almost laughed at myself for noticing it. It happened on a Wednesday evening, 2 months before the restaurant confrontation. He came home later than usual, not very late, just late enough that dinner was already cooling. He apologized, as he always did, but his apology felt distracted, like his mind was elsewhere. He kept checking his phone while eating, not in a sneaky way, just compulsively, like someone expecting an update. I asked casually, "Everything okay?" He nodded too quickly. "Just work." Nothing about that moment screamed betrayal, but something shifted inside me, not a full suspicion, just a thin thread of discomfort I couldn't name. Then came the second moment. He started carrying a diaper bag in the trunk of his car. I only saw it because I dropped something on the garage floor and bent to pick it up. The trunk hatch was open, and there it was, folded neatly in a corner like it belonged there. A baby blue diaper bag with cartoon clouds printed on it. I remember staring at it and telling myself it must belong to someone else, a colleague maybe, who asked for a ride for their kid. That was the story my brain wrote immediately so I wouldn't have to think harder. That's what the mind does when it loves. It defends. It rationalizes. It protects you from pain until it can't anymore. I didn't ask him about it. Because asking means you are ready to hear the answer. I was. The third clue was more intimate, and that one stayed under my skin. He stopped complaining. My husband has never been dramatic, but he is a predictable narrator of his day. If someone at work annoyed him, he told me. If the traffic was bad, he sighed about it. If his mother said something insensitive, he rolled his eyes and reenacted it. But suddenly, nothing bothered him. He came home with a lightness that didn't match his routine. He sat down with a softness in his shoulders, like someone whose needs were being taken care of elsewhere. Not physically, emotionally. He didn't have the hunger of someone waiting to be heard. He wasn't arriving at me, he was returning from somewhere else already emotionally fed. At the time, I only registered it as, he seems calmer these days. Now I know calm can be a symptom of betrayal. Then came the fourth moment, the one that finally scratched my denial. It was a Saturday morning. He said he was going for a quick errand. Half an hour, he said. He left his laptop open on the dining table. Not suspicious in itself, but I moved it to make space for laundry, and the screen woke up. A browser tab was open, a map's route to a residential address I didn't recognize. Normally, I would have closed it without thinking, but something in me, something quiet and frightened, hovered there. It wasn't the address that scared me. It was the search history under it. Newborn formula feeding schedule. Postpartum bleeding, how long is normal? Apartment near Mother Care Clinic. I stared at those 3 lines, so long I felt my pulse in my teeth. There is a kind of silence that doesn't feel like silence. It feels like the moment right before glass shatters. My hands were shaking, but not with anger, with recognition. My body understood before my mind allowed the words to form. When he came back that afternoon, I studied him differently. Every gesture, every tone, every pause, he looked like the same man. Same slippers, same favorite mug, same way he loosened his collar. And yet, he was now split in my eyes. I didn't confront him then, not because I was afraid of him, but because I was afraid of the answer. Betrayal is not a question you ask when you are still trying to protect your life from collapsing. So I told myself stories. Maybe he was helping a cousin, maybe someone else used his laptop, maybe the map was for a friend. I stitched excuses together like patches on a wound. But once you see something true, even for a second, your mind keeps circling back like a tongue to a broken tooth. And so I began to watch him, not as a wife watches her husband, but as someone waiting for certainty. I didn't know it yet, but the ground under my marriage had already split. I was just now learning to see the cracks. I did not go to that dinner, intending to confront him. That is the part people never understand. Discovery is not always a planned attack. Sometimes truth is like steam trapped under a lid, one nudge and it all escapes. He had suggested the dinner. "We haven't gone out in a while," he said that morning, his voice gentle, almost nostalgic. If anything, I thought maybe he wanted to talk about us, maybe he sensed distance and wanted to repair it. I dressed simply, not to impress, not to seduce, just to be myself. On the drive there, he played the same old playlist, the one he always did, old guzzles, soft and melancholic. It made me oddly emotional, and I wondered if I was paranoid these past weeks, if perhaps nothing was wrong. We sat, ordered, spoke about normal things, work, his mother's health, my niece's exams. It was a perfectly ordinary dinner. Too ordinary, ordinary in a way that felt staged. Then the waiter walked away after placing our plates, and the silence that followed had weight. He wiped his mouth with his napkin slowly, like someone buying time inside his own head. I don't know what possessed me, maybe the calmness around him, maybe the diaper bag memory, maybe those search terms, but the question fell out of me like a stone. Is there someone else, and is there a child? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't tremble. I spoke like someone asking the time. He did not flinch. He did not look confused. He did not even ask, "What do you mean?" He just exhaled, a long, relieved-sounding breath, like someone finally setting down a weight they have carried too long. And then he nodded. Not once in my life had a single nod felt louder. I stared at him, waiting for the denial, the backtracking, something, but instead he spoke with a softness that made me nauseous. "She had the baby in April," he said quietly, "a girl." The restaurant noise blurred around me. Forks scraped plates, ice cubes clinked in glasses, someone laughed at the next table, and I sat there feeling like my bones were made of glass. My voice came out small. "How long?" 3 years, he said. 3 years. 3 years of birthdays, laundry, morning tea, shared pillows, while he built a second life in the shadows. I could not cry, not there. Shock is drier than tears. "Does she know about me?" I asked. He nodded again. "She knows I'm married." "And she still." "She thought it was temporary," he said, looking away. "I told her I would work things out." Work things out. Meaning me, my life, my marriage, reduced to an inconvenience he planned to quietly rearrange. I wasn't even angry yet. I was suspended in disbelief. "Do you live with her?" I asked. "Some nights," he admitted, "when the baby." I lifted my hand. "Stop." Because the image of him holding a crying infant in another home, shushing and rocking and soothing, while I folded his shirts in hours, that image was a knife. For a moment I just breathed. In, out, slow, deliberate, like someone stopping herself from choking. Then came the worst part, the part that broke something irreparable. He looked at me with a tenderness that might have once felt loving and said, "I didn't want to hurt you." The audacity. I looked at him, the way one looks at a stranger who has borrowed a familiar face. "You didn't want to hurt me," I repeated softly, "but you built a second family." He dropped his gaze. "You could have left me," I whispered. "You could have told me before a child was born. You could have given me the dignity of choice." He didn't answer because there was no defense. The room suddenly felt too bright, too loud, too exposed. I gathered my bag with hands that didn't feel like mine. He reached slightly forward, not to stop me, but out of some reflex of ownership. "Please," he said under his breath, "let me explain." I looked at him with a clarity I had not felt in weeks. "You haven't lied by accident," I said. "You lied by design." And then I stood. I walked out of that restaurant not because I knew what I would do next, but because I knew staying seated would mean teaching him that I could listen to this kind of truth politely. Some truths require distance just to breathe. I walked to the car with steps that shook, not from weakness, but from the shock of learning the entire story of my marriage had a missing chapter. He followed me out a few seconds later, calling my name once, softly, as if we were just a couple arguing over something trivial. But we were not a couple anymore. We were two people, one who had lived honestly and one who had not. I did not scream in that parking lot. I did not throw keys or call him names or create a scene. Dignity is the only weapon a betrayed woman still controls, and I was not going to drop mine. I unlocked the car and sat in the passenger seat without looking at him. He got in slowly, like someone approaching a wound. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he tried, in that careful, considerate voice I once found gentle. "I never wanted to lose you," he said. Loss, that word offended me more than anything he admitted, as if I was something he mismanaged, not someone he dismantled. I turned my face toward the window. "Drive," I said. He obeyed. The city lights passed like blurs of yellow and white. I watched people walking sidewalks, carrying groceries, fixing shawls around their shoulders, ordinary motions of people who still recognized their lives. I didn't speak again until we were a few streets from home. "Do you give them money?" I asked quietly. "Yes." "How much?" "A set amount every month." "From our account?" "No," he said quickly, "a separate one." Separate, of course. He had built not just a secret life but a financial architecture around it. "And you stay there," I swallowed, "as a husband." He hesitated, which was answer enough. Something inside me stiffened, like a door closing. I did not cry. I did not ask why. Why implies a belief that an answer could undo what has already burned. When we reached home, I didn't wait for him. I went straight to the bedroom, opened the closet, and took down the file box where we kept documents, property papers, insurance, bank letters. I laid them on the bed one by one like evidence. He stood at the doorway. "What are you doing?" "Taking inventory of the life you expect me to keep living," I said. He rubbed his forehead. "Please don't make decisions tonight." "That line," I said, looking up, "is meant for men who made mistakes, not for men who lived double lives for 3 years. He sat on the edge of the dresser stool. For the first time, his voice cracked. "I didn't plan for it to go this far." "Things don't go far without planning," I replied. The first action I took was not loud. It was administrative. I opened my laptop and logged into our accounts. Transfers, payments, withdrawals. I examined everything not with the eyes of a wife, but of someone doing an audit. He watched me in silence. After a while he said, "I'll stop. I will end it." I looked at him slowly, steadily. "You can't unmake a child." Silence. He swallowed hard. "I don't want to lose you." "That is the second time you have framed this as your loss," I said. "Not once have you asked what this has done to me." He closed his eyes like someone praying. I stood and walked past him. My voice was calm, low, deliberate. "I am not leaving tonight," I said. "Not because I am staying, but because I need a clear mind to decide which version of my life I am ending." He opened his eyes. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, "I will not burn blindly. I will choose where the fire goes." That was the last sentence I said to him that night. I slept in the guest room. I did not cry. Crying requires grief. I was still in the anatomy of shock, a hollow, measured, surgical stillness. In the morning, I woke before sunrise, made tea, sat at the table, and began writing a list not of emotions, not of speeches, but of steps. Consult lawyer discreetly. Secure personal funds. Inform no one yet. Collect proof quietly. Decide timeline, not reaction. People imagine reaction means shouting, eviction, drama. But the truest reaction to betrayal is not noise, it is precision. By the time he woke up, I already knew. I would not destroy myself to punish him. I would not act until I understood the cost, to me. Revenge without strategy is just self-harm. I would move, but I would move like someone who understands exactly what has been taken from her. I did not expose him immediately. Exposure without structure only creates spectacle, not justice. I waited until my preparations were in place. Legal consultation done, copies of bank records saved, a quiet plan forming. Only then did I begin to let truth leave the walls of our house. The first person I told was not family, it was the lawyer. The second was my older sister, not emotional disclosure, just factual. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she inhaled sharply and said only one thing. Okay, then we do this with dignity. No screaming, no phone calls, no curses, just alignment. The public consequence began not with shouting but with silence. I stopped covering for him. When his mother called asking why he hadn't visited, I answered plainly. Ask him. When relatives asked why I didn't come with him to a dinner, I responded. We are not attending events together for now. No details, just the first fracture shown to daylight. The true break happened 2 weeks later at a family gathering, his cousin's engagement. People noticed immediately that we arrived separately. We stood apart. The air between us was visibly cold. It was his aunt who asked first, in that probing tone women reserve for other women. Everything okay between you two? You look distant. I looked at her steadily and said, without heat, without hesitation. He has another household. There is a child. The room did not gasp. Rooms never gasp. They freeze. His aunt's face fell. Conversations behind us quieted. Word travels by silence faster than by voices. He was standing across the room. He heard. His jaw tightened, and for the first time since his confession, I saw fear, not guilt, not sorrow, fear of consequence. He walked over quickly. Can we talk outside? He muttered. No, I said calmly. You built this in private. You can listen to truth in public. He drew in a breath, trying to salvage control. This is not the place. You should have thought about place 3 years ago. I did not shout. I did not cry. I stated the fact the way one states the weather. Someone asked softly, is it true? He did not deny it. That was the moment everything turned. Not because I announced it, but because he did not fight the accusation. In families, denial is the life jacket. When a man refuses to wear it, he sinks in front of witnesses. Within an hour, his mother was on the phone, her voice trembling with humiliation, not for me, but for herself. His uncle avoided eye contact. His cousins whispered in corners. The engagement music played on, but the atmosphere had shifted. That night, he came home angry, not at the betrayal, but at the exposure. You humiliated me, he said, packing. No, I answered. You humiliated me for 3 years. I simply stopped protecting you. He pressed his palms to his forehead. Now everyone will think. They will think, I cut in, what is true? He looked at me then with the expression of a man realizing consequences are not theatrical. They are social, reputational, generational. Men who keep second families assume their cowardice will never see daylight. They live on the belief that wives will protect the family's image even while bleeding inside. I had withdrawn that protection. And the punishment was immediate, without me lifting a single stone. His mother stopped speaking to him. His siblings cut short their calls. His colleagues, through the family grapevine, began to know. Not because I ranted, but because truth, once freed, travels without wings. He moved into the guest room voluntarily after that night, as if space might soften consequence. It didn't. He attempted apologies, negotiations, explanations, none of which could erase the public stain of betrayal. Consequences are not loud. They are slow and humiliating. They unfold in every room where his name is now measured differently. I did not destroy him. I simply stopped covering him, and he began to collapse under his own truth. Healing did not arrive like a sunrise, sudden and bright. It came like winter ending, quietly in slow degrees, almost unnoticeable at first. The week after the family gathering, I met the lawyer again. This time I went with a clear decision. I would not compete with another woman for a man who had already divided himself. I would not spend the next decade policing, checking, fearing. I chose divorce not as revenge, but as self-preservation. When I told him, he didn't shout. He sat very still on the edge of the bed. "So that's it," he said flatly. "No," I replied, "not it. This is what comes after 3 years of lies." He didn't beg, he only asked, "Can we do it quietly?" The old version of me would have softened at that, would have considered his dignity, his family's embarrassment, the ripple of gossip. But betrayal rewrites a woman's priorities. "We will do it correctly," I said, "not quietly." He lowered his head. He knew what that meant, no hiding, no narrative control, no rewriting history in whispers. In the weeks that followed, I began reclaiming my life in small, ordinary ways before the legal papers were even signed. I changed my passwords. I moved some funds to my name. I packed away frames and linens that belonged more to our past than to my future. I started sleeping without the tension of waiting for a door to open or a phone to light up. Healing often begins the day you stop bracing for pain. People assume the hardest part of betrayal is discovering it. It is. The hardest part is rebuilding your sense of self without the man you once built your life around. Some relatives tried to mediate. "Maybe think of reconciliation," they suggested. "Men make mistakes," they said. "At least he didn't abandon you," one aunt whispered. I looked at them with a calm I didn't expect to find in myself. "He did abandon me," I said. "He just didn't move his shoes out of the house while doing it." Over time, the noise died down. People learn to live with truth the way they live with weather. They adjust. But what didn't die down was a quiet, emerging pride inside me, not arrogance, not hardness, just a recognition that I survived something I once believed would destroy me. As the filings progressed, he grew smaller in the rooms of our house, not physically, but in presence. He walked softer, spoke less, avoided my eyes. Shame is a silent roommate. One evening, weeks after I had filed, he asked from the doorway of the living room, "Do you hate me?" I looked at him honestly. No. Hatred still ties you to someone. I was untethering. "I don't hate you," I continued. "I just no longer belong to the version of my life that included you." He swallowed hard. That hurt him more than hatred would have. Because hatred means a woman is still burning. Indifference means the fire has already burned itself out, and she is walking out of the ashes. I began visiting my sister more. I started reading again books I had abandoned. I reopened my old hobby of writing small reflections in a journal. I went asleep without the weight of suspicion. I woke without the effort of pretending to be okay. Healing looked like breathing in full lungs again. One morning, I stood at the mirror brushing my hair and I realized I looked like myself again. Not the wife, not the betrayed woman, just myself. The woman I was before my life was divided without my consent. That realization was the first peace I had felt in months. By the time we reached the final stages of divorce, I was no longer fragile. I was steady. Not loud, not vengeful, steady. The kind of steady that comes when a woman has looked at her deepest humiliation and did not collapse under it. That is my resolution. Not a new love, not a miracle, not sudden joy, but sovereignty. I learned that rebuilding is not about replacing what you lost, but reclaiming who you were before someone made you doubt your own worth. And that, in the quietest, strongest sense, is healing. There is a kind of pain that does not scream, it just rearranges you from the inside. Betrayal is that kind. It will not only break your trust in a person, it will test your faith in yourself, in your judgment, your intuition, your worth. For a while, I kept asking, how did I not see it? How could he do this? Why wasn't I enough? But healing taught me something I wish I had learned sooner. A man's betrayal is not a report card on a woman's value. You can be loyal, attentive, soft, forgiving, patient, and someone who lives on lies will still choose the darkness of secrecy over the sunlight of honesty. Their decision reveals them, not you. If you are listening to this and you are carrying a secret pain, a half-truth you pretend not to see, a silence you've been swallowing to keep the peace, hear me clearly. You do not have to destroy yourself to keep a relationship alive. You do not have to shrink to be chosen. You do not have to compete to be respected. You do not have to beg to be told the truth. There comes a day when the fear of losing someone becomes smaller than the fear of losing yourself. That day was my beginning, not my ending. And maybe, if you are listening, your beginning is quietly forming too. If this story gave you strength, even a small one, pause before you scroll and do 3 things. Comment below, even one line like, I choose myself. Or, I hear you. Your words will tell another silent listener they are not alone. Share this video with one woman who needs courage more than comfort. Subscribe if you want more true stories told in a voice that does not rush your pain, shame, or healing. Because somewhere out there, another woman is living the chapter you just finished. And she needs to know there is a door out. And that, in the quietest, strongest sense, is healing.